A barrage of stars, as mesmerizing as it is merciless. That is the flavor of this deck. Diana, the fan-favorite gunslinger from Grand Archive, is now making her re-debut as a Spellslinger who calls upon the ether to load up her magical bow with the power of the cosmos. Hello, I'm Eva, and I'm excited to introduce the Diana Moonpiercer starter deck from the set Distorted Reflections, which releases July 25th, 2025. Not to be confused with the previous Diana Duskstalker starter deck. If you're not already familiar with Grand Archive, it's an amazing trading card game with Western game design and anime-style art. Diana is a champion of the Ranger class, but this time in lieu of her guns and bullets, we have Ether Wings and Ether Charges, basically magical bows and magical arrows. Ether Charges get loaded into Ether Wings and you shoot them at your opponents. The rules for these work exactly the same as guns and bullets, but there are some spicy new mechanics here that are extremely fun. Playing this deck will give you your dopamine hit. This starter deck features the basic element Water and the advanced element Astra, which is enabled upon reaching level 3. The playstyle of this deck is mid-range, and it revolves around dealing combat damage every turn by firing your weapons, and late game trying to close it out with a big burst. You'll also have tools for interaction. Fun fact, your Ether Charges, the magical ammunition, are all fast spells, some of which have effects that will protect Diana, so you can play those spells for those effects and subsequently load them up into your spellbow. It's a sweet 2-in-1 deal. This starter deck has a 4 out of 5 star difficulty rating. I won't lie, it's not too easy to just pick up without guidance. There are lots of mechanics and specific rules compounded in this deck. But also, once you understand the basics, it's actually not too complicated to pilot. Your game plan is essentially to keep trying to do one thing, just pew pew. So keep watching and we're gonna get your questions answered in this video so you can just enjoy playing. Do not worry, I'm not releasing this video until Silidar, the lead game designer of Grand Archive, gives us approval that everything is correct. Here is the deck list. It's almost all spells, with most being Ether Charges and only 2 allies. Marked with a red asterisk are cards that currently can't be found in Grand Archive's booster sets and are exclusive to this product. The starter deck comes with your standard 12-card material deck and 60-card main deck, plus 2 tokens you'll find on the outside of the plastic wrapper, the Astral Shard tokens. Do not shuffle these into your deck. I repeat, do not shuffle them into the deck. These tokens will just sit on the side until you play cards that summon them to the field. You also will have a chance of pulling a CSR, Collector Signature Rare version of Diana's level 3 Moonpiercer, so here's to hoping that shiny card comes home for you. Before we get into the deck, let's do a basic overview of how guns and bullets, and by extension Ether Wings and Ether Charges, work. Though I'll just be saying guns and bullets for simplicity. Your champion can use a gun weapon to attack. This family of projectile weapons is different from most other weapons in GA in that 1. It cannot be combined with an attack card, and 2. It needs at least 1 bullet loaded into it to be used for an attack. Multiple bullets can be loaded into a single gun. Most actual bullets, though, will specifically say it can be only loaded into an unloaded gun, but don't worry, not a single Ether Charge in the starter deck says that. You are encouraged to jam a gajillion into one Ether Wing and fire them all at once in a galactic burst. When you attack, everything combines into 1 instance of damage. The damage dealt is the sum of the power stats on the gun and all of the bullets that are part of the attack, plus any other modifications. And it all goes towards 1 target, unless any of the cards says otherwise. Alright, let's dive into this spell-slinging deck. We'll start with your champion lineage and some of the mechanics you'll be using throughout the game. You begin as the level 0 Spirit of Water, draw 7 cards. Then, Diana stuns in new level 1 champion, Diana Ether Dilettante. She has, on enter, if Diana is distant, materialize an Ether Wing card from your material deck. You still pay its costs. Now, what does it mean to be distant? Distant is a state that a unit can be in and generally needs to be given to it. For example, before going to level 1, in order to get all the benefits of this ability, you would probably want to play a card like Backstep. It says, target unit becomes distant, draw a card. Note that it also says, units stay distant until the end of their controller's turn. So, if you were to play this during your opponent's turn, when it comes back to your turn, you are still distant until the end of your turn. Now, the next part of Diana 1's effects explain why you'd want to become distant. Inherited effect, meaning you'll continue having this effect even after you've leveled up. Ranged 1. As long as this unit is distant, its attacks get +1 power. Remember that in order to make a good surprise ranged attack on your enemies, you must snipe from a safe distance. Alright, Diana level 2, Judgment's Arrow. She has Diana Lineage, meaning this has to level up from a previous Diana champion. On enter, load up to 2 Ether Charge cards from your hand and or memory into an Ether Wing weapon you control. For each card loaded this way, draw a card into your memory. It's a great way to cycle out some cards and load up your Ether Wing without paying any cost for them. And get this, since you are not activating those cards, there's no check that the cards you're loading satisfy your element restrictions. That means you can use this ability to cheat in those Astra advanced element charges, which you'll probably want to do because they deal more damage. However, again, because you're not activating those cards, you don't get the other effects that are written on these ether charges. Just ignore all that text. The only thing that's going to be relevant is its power stat for your attack. There would of course be an exception if any of them had on attack or on hit effects, but nothing in the starter deck has those, don't worry. Just like your level 1, Diana level 2 also has Inherited Effect, Ranged 1. These ranged buffs stack, so now when you become distant, your attacks will hit for 2 more power. Finally, she's here to pierce your heart. Level 3 is Diana, Moonpiercer. She's an Astra Element champion, which will now allow you to start playing Astra Advanced Element cards. Her ability is this. Whenever Diana becomes distant, choose one. Okay, the first option here already has 2 parts, so let's break that one up. First part is classic Astra flavor. Negate each card activation that targets Diana unless its controller pays 2 reserve cost. To negate a card means that that card does not resolve and its effects do not happen. Yes, Diana has a built-in frostbind that triggers by becoming distant, though the limitation is that the card has to specifically say target with Diana chosen as the target. Next part. Then if Diana is defending, end the combat phase unless the attacking player pays 2 reserve cost. Diana defending means that she's currently being targeted in combat. To end the combat phase means the attack will no longer happen. Your opponent, though, can still use another unit to attack Diana again in the same turn, it just closes this particular combat phase. The other option, which you'll also find is quite useful, is to Glimpse 2. To Glimpse 2, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck and can put them back on the top and or bottom of the deck in any order. You will be glimpsing a lot with this deck, so let's get used to it. Now, very important thing to know. Once you become distant, you can't become distant again until it wears off at the end of your turn. This effectively means that you can only trigger this level 3 ability once every turn cycle. And that's your champion lineage. Now we'll move on to the Regalia cards in your material deck. First thing, let's shine a spotlight on the Ether Wings, your magical staff bows. Aqua Mirage Whisper is a 0-cost water weapon with 1 power stat and 3 durability. This thing has Spell Shroud, which is very important to keep it safe as it can't be targeted by spells. Specifically, it can't be hit by cards that have the spell type, or if it says as a spell, and it also needs to say the word target. However, it's not safe from things like this horse, or cards that are skills, not spells. When you use this for an attack, it has this ability locked behind a class bonus, so you have to have leveled up into Diana to be Ranger class. On hit, so dealing 1 damage or more, Glimpse 1 plus X, where X is the amount of damage dealt by this hit. Then put the top card of your deck into your graveyard. This is an insane value engine because you'll often hit a floating memory card, which you can then toss into your graveyard to help pay for your leveling up. And with 3 durability, you can do this 3 times. During playtesting, we always like bringing this Ether Wing out first so you start generating value right away. The next Ether Wing is Seeker's Ether Wing. It's pretty similar to the last one, also has Spell Shroud to protect itself. But instead of its other effect, this one has True Sight. Attacks using this weapon can target units with stealth. And the last Ether Wing, when you've unlocked the Astra Advanced element, you can bring out Pleiades Celestial Genesis. It's got a power stat of 2 and durability of 3. Pleiades has On Enter Glimpse 3. And whenever you use it for an attack, Astra Element Ether Charge cards in the attacker's intent gain On Hit, Summon, an Astral Shard token. Oh, that's a lot of words. First, let's take this chance to break down what the intent is and how the zones work on a slightly technical level. When you attack using an Ether Wing, all of its loaded objects, that being your ether charges that are loaded into it, will enter the intent zone, where it waits to see if it will successfully hit your opponent and what responses they might play. It's everything that's midair hurtling at your enemy. During this waiting time, it's important that your ether charges are in this special intent zone because things that are in the intent basically can't be interacted with. For example, in the middle of your attack, your opponent can't sneakily destroy an ether charge or bullet that's in the intent. Now to summon, you'll grab that handy Astral Shard token that you set aside outside of the game and put it onto your field. Usually people use dice to show how many you have total. But here's the catch. Tokens are special objects that can't exist outside of your field, so if it gets destroyed or banished, etc., instead of moving to another zone, it just poof disappears. Here's what an Astral Shard token does. Sacrifice it to glimpse 2. And you can do that at fast speed to essentially glimpse at any time. Note that Pleiades is your only Aetherwing that does not have Spell Shroud. It's your most vulnerable weapon. Now onto your Regalia items. Foresight Lens. Banish this to glimpse 2. If your champion is distant, glimpse 4 instead. Reflexal Ribbon. Oh, such a cute item. Pay 2 reserve cost and banish it to load target Aether Charge card from your graveyard into an Aetherwing weapon you control. We love recycling. Just like Diana level 2's ability, this isn't activating that card and won't check for restrictions, aka grab that Astro card. The next item is Ranger Boots. This one costs 1 memory cost, but refunds itself with on enter, draw a card. Then it has this ability you can activate by resting it and banishing it. Your champion becomes distant. However, it also has Hindered, which means it enters the field rested, so you can't use that ability the first turn it comes out. The final 2 Regalia are Starter Deck Classics. Terrafring. Banish it during your opponent's recollection phase. Until end of turn, players can't declare attacks unless they pay 2 reserve cost. Lastly, Bauble of Abundance. Banish it, each player draws a card. Now onto the main deck. Let's look at the various Aether Charges available in your quiver. They all have a few things in common. They're all spell-type cards. Unlike bullets and arrows, these are not considered objects and can't exist directly on the field. They all can be played at fast speed, and they each have some effect followed by, then you may load this card into an Aetherwing weapon you control. Additionally, all of your Norm and Water Aether Charges have a power stat of 1, and all of your Astra Element Aether Charges have a power stat of 2. The following 3 Aether Charges all have effects that leave you card neutral. Prudent Knock draws a card into your memory. Charge the Soul has floating memory and also deals 1 additional damage to target unit at the time when this card is activated. And Etheric Calibration has Glimpse 4. Then reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is an Aether Charge card, put it into your memory. The next 2 Aether Charges are defensive. Dissuading Aether gives target unit's attacks -3 power until end of turn. Drown in Aether gives target rested ally -3 life until end of turn. If that ally has 0 life left, it's a dead ally. This card actually inherently is slow speed, but once you're level 1, you unlock the class bonus fast activation. Now onto your more powerful Astra Aether Charges. They all have this exhilarating new serotonin-inducing keyword. Introducing Aether Calling! Hope you can tell I love magical girls. This is gonna be a thing. Sorry, I'm having too much fun with this. Glimpsing in this deck does more than just help you sculpt your hand. It also enables this, Aether Calling. As you're looking at this card while glimpsing, you may load it into an Aetherwing weapon you control. Again, this isn't activating and you don't have to pay any costs. Let's say you're using the item Foresight Lens to glimpse 4. By some insane stroke of fortune, the 4 cards you pick up are all cards that say Aether Calling on them. Yes, you can just say, I load this first Aether Charge, I load the second Aether Charge, I load the third Aether Charge, I load the 4th Aether Charge. Boom, 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 your cosmic powers have pulled all of the stars out of the sky into the palm of your hands. How exciting. By the way, these Aether Calling cards all have element bonus, so you can only do this when your champion has Astra enabled at level 3. But if instead of Aether Calling them, you want to activate them like normal, here are the effects that these cards have. Constellation's Blessing draws a card back and only costs 1 to play. Guided Starlight gives your champion's next attack this turn unblockable unless an opponent pays 3 reserve. Unblockable means that the attack would ignore both Intercept and Taunt, so your opponent's blockers are now useless. And finally, Sidereal Spellshot has a reserve cost of X, allowing you to determine that number. Then, Glimpse X. Next, here are the other spells and skills you'll find in the main deck. You know it, you probably hate it. Idle Thoughts. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck and then put them back in any order. It's got floating memory. The next 3 cards all give your champion Distant. Remember, you need to be distant to enable your ranged buffs, and also Diana's level 3 ability triggers upon becoming distant. They're all fast speed cards so that you can trigger that ability when you need it. alongside making you distant, Backstep draws you back a card, Reposition has floating memory, and Undercurrent Vantage has both floating memory and lets you glimpse 3. Now these next cards are all Astra Advanced Element. Starbirth, draw a card into your memory, then summon an Astral Shard token. Again, each of these tokens says sacrifice it, glimpse 2. Use these to fill up on ether-called ether charges, or maybe to find some of these next cards, which are quite powerful. Poised Occlusion. Negate target card activation. Put the card that had its activation negated this way into its owner's memory. Draw a card into your memory. Your champion becomes distant. It does all the things and replaces itself. And this is how you burst your enemy down. It feels a bit like Moonpiercer's ultimate, Meteoric Volley. Activate this card only if your champion is attacking. For each ether charge card in the attacker's intent, create a copy of it in that attacker's intent. Wow. So remember how when you enter the combat phase, all of the loaded ether charges in your ether wing go into the intent zone? This card essentially almost doubles the damage that you'll do. Let's say your weapon is Pleiades Celestial Genesis with 4 ether charges loaded into it that each have 2 power. Inherently, the attack would hit for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 damage. Then after you unleash Meteoric Volley, you now have 8 ether charges in your outbox to deal 18 damage total. A couple of things to note though. If you stack multiple Meteoric Volleys in one attack, it will not make your intent grow exponentially. It can only make a copy of actual cards you have and won't make a copy of the copies. Playing 2 Meteoric Volleys in one attack with 4 ether charges will result in 12 ether charges, not 16. Also, it doesn't copy the effects that are on those cards. The weapon Pleiades gives your original 4 ether charges the on-hit summon an astral token effect, but the copies won't receive that. So all in all, you will still just summon the 4 astral shards total. And finally, we have Astrocyte, a 0-cost card that says, glimpse 1, then draw a card. This is also the only card in this deck that has the mechanic called Star Calling! And then noted next to that is 0 reserve cost. As you're looking at this card while glimpsing, you may activate it by paying this cost, 0 in this case. If you do, put all other cards you're looking at on the bottom of your deck in any order. Oh boy, this is where things can become tangled, so let's talk through a play where you're glimpsing 4 and you have Astra unlocked. In these 4 cards, you see a card with Ether Calling and this card with Star Calling. You can do both in the same glimpse, as long as you order them correctly. Make sure to always do any Ether Calling first. That pulls those cards out of your glimpse and they get loaded into your weapon. Now you can Star Call safely and won't lose those Ether Calling cards, because remember, in order to Star Call the Astrocyte, you have to put all other cards you're looking at on the bottom of your deck. And for those who are ready, let's add another layer of complexity. We're attacking using the weapon Aqua Mirage Whisper, which allows you to glimpse on hit, then put the top card of your deck into your graveyard. This is the order that everything is going to happen. Your attack hits, you glimpse 4. You Ether Call the Ether Charge first, because you always do, causing it to leave the glimpse and become loaded into your weapon. Now you Star Call Astrocyte by paying 0, nothing, and putting the remaining glimpsed cards on the bottom of your deck. So at this point, do you do Astrocyte's effect of glimpse 1 then draw a card? The answer is no. That will happen later. You're currently still in the middle of resolving the effect from Aqua Mirage Whisper and have to finish that first. The glimpse is complete, so then you'll put the top card of your deck into the grave. Now Aqua Mirage Whisper is done and the game moves on to resolving the Astrocyte you played. Glimpse 1, then draw a card. Woohoo! Big brain Astra stuff. Alright, we've made it to the last section that details cards in the deck. Is your head spinning a bit from the mechanics? Well, at least the allies are easy peasy. There's only 2. Stalwart Shieldmate is back as a classic protection unit. Its stats are 0 power and 2 life, so it cannot attack. But it can stand tall and taunt. That means, while awake, this ally must be targeted before other objects you control during your opponent's attack declarations if able. It will block for your champion and all other allies, then gives you floating memory. Corsair Captain has 1 power and 3 life, but it also has ranged 2. As long as this unit is distant, its attacks get +2 power, so it can potentially hit for 3. Also has floating memory, which is nice. Whoa, what do you think of this dazzling deck? It's cool, right? Load, Ether Calling, double it, pew pew! Now let's talk some general strategy and tips. Tip number 1. Generally, you'll find yourself attacking pretty much every turn. Many of your ether charges are card neutral, meaning they have floating memory or draw back a card, so don't be afraid to use them or go distant to take advantage of your ranged buff. Tip number 2. This is a deck where you'll want to get to level 3 because Ether Calling, Meteoric Volley, and the ability to negate will allow you to pop off. While you might want to level up as fast as possible, you'll probably still want to take a turn off to pull out an extra Ether Wing weapon, assuring that you always have one available. Being well equipped is quite important for this deck. Tip number 3. In your opening hand, because of Diana level 1's ability that lets you materialize an Ether Wing if you're distant, ideally you have a card that gives you distant. Typically you'll play this on your opponent's turn to set up for your turn. But if you don't see distant in your opening hand, don't go to Diana level 1 on your next turn. Go ahead and grab Ranger Boots now. This item will give you distant on the turn after if you still haven't found any distant cards. On that next turn, the way you would use it is this. Materialize Diana level 1. Let that materialization resolve so now you are a Ranger and it unlocks Ranger class bonuses, which is imperative in order to use Ranger Boots' ability. Then, in response to Diana's on-enter ability, you can now banish Ranger Boots to become distant. Afterwards, the on-enter resolves and sees that you're distant, get your Ether Wing, profit. Tip number 4. Before you advance to both levels 2 and 3, make sure there's an Ether Wing on your board. It would be so sad to not have anything to load for level 2's ability, or if you're glimpsing and see Ether Calling. Tip number 5. Diana's weakness is that she can only attack once per turn, so having the ally Corsair Captain is generally helpful with clearing blockers so that Diana can go in for the kill. Or wait until your opponent puts down their hand, so you can use Guided Starlight to make your attack unblockable unless they can pay 3 reserve cost. This takes a bit of planning ahead, but if you see that they have 4 cards up, you can use your level 3 ability to potentially force them to put 2 cards down, even if it doesn't successfully negate or end the combat phase. Because now with 2 cards left in hand, they're going to be too poor to avoid your unblockable attack. Tip number 6. If you materialize Bauble of Abundance, instead of popping it right away to draw a card, consider leaving it on your field until the right time. Your deck has so many ways of glimpsing that you can find the card you need, place it on the top of your deck, then use Bauble of Abundance to draw it in that clutch moment. Final tip. Watch out for the fact that your Ether Wing, Pleiades Celestial Genesis, is your only weapon that doesn't have Spell Shroud. I would find myself using this weapon early after reaching level 3 to round up those Astral Shard tokens for infinite glimpsing. However, be careful to not put too many eggs into this one basket. It's possible that after you've loaded up a gajillion ether charges, and before you get a chance to attack, your opponent can blow it up, and that would suck. So, for your most important attacks, you'll want to use one of your spell-shrouded Ether Wings instead. It's a very rule-heavy deck, so let's answer some more ruling questions that many people probably will have. Again, I'll just be referring to guns and bullets for simplicity, but all of this extends to the ether projectiles too. Question number 1. What happens when my opponent destroys my gun, but there's bullets loaded into it? Those bullets get destroyed too, so those loaded ether charges will all go to the graveyard. Question number 2. What happens when my opponent destroys my gun in the middle of an attack? Well, like I mentioned earlier in the video, during combat, the loaded bullets enter something called the intent zone, where it can no longer be interacted with, so those bullets are safe. The attack still goes through like normal. However, now with the gun destroyed, it's just the gun no longer contributes its power stat to the damage dealt, making your attack slightly weaker. Question number 3. What happens when my opponent destroys my gun in response to me loading a bullet? Here's where bullets and ether charges differ. Ether charges are spells, not items, and can't exist directly on the field. So if the ether charge has nothing to load into, it'll just go to the graveyard. But if you had multiple ether wings out, you can go ahead and load it into a not destroyed ether wing. It simply says you may load it into an ether wing weapon you control. It doesn't say target ether wing. Question number 4. If you were to glimpse while in the middle of an attack, could you ether call to add more ether charges to that attack? The answer is no. You can't add anything to the intent mid-combat unless a card has that specific effect. If you have another ether wing, or this current one will still have durability, you could load those ether charges to save for later. Lastly, here are a few very basic, simple upgrade ideas to make your starter deck a bit stronger. I will not be including any cards from the set Distorted Reflections, or DTR, because at the time of making this video, none of the new cards have been revealed yet. I don't know anything. I'm sure there will be cool new toys and tools for our Spellslinger there, though. First of all, our staples. Add a Divine Relic. It'll probably be between Grand Crusader's Ring for card draw or Quicksilver Grail, possibly to hide your trap card. Smoke Bombs. Target ally gains stealth until end of turn. Draw a card. It's a Regalia with 1 memory cost. As Diana is extremely combat dependent, she will struggle against blockers. Use Smoke Bombs on an ally with Taunt or Intercept. Now that it has stealth, Diana can no longer target it for an attack and is free to turn her opponent champion into Stardust. For a similar purpose is the ally Snow Fairy. Her stealth makes her harder to kill, and she has on enter, rest target ally you don't control. That ally doesn't wake up during its controller's wake up phase as long as you control Snow Fairy. Remember, blockers have to be awake for Taunt or Intercept to work. Another great defensive card is Tactical Retreat. Target unit becomes distant. If that unit is defending, end the combat phase. Its only downside is that it costs 3 reserve, but it has floating memory. Of course, no water deck is complete without Frostworn Paladin, who's a brilliant offensive and defensive ally, and will certainly be happy about all the floating memory you drop into the graveyard using Aqua Mirage Whisper. And lastly, Dungeon Guide will allow you to become level 3 earlier and leave you an extra materialization phase to bring out your tools. And there we go! Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about this deck of pure, sparkling dopamine. Shoutouts to Fome, Andrew, and Connie for helping with playtesting, and also Silidar and Main Deck Dan for making sure I don't misinform you. The other starter deck releasing in Distorted Reflections will be Ciel, Mirage's Grave. And you should most definitely check out Main Deck Dan's video to uncover more about this masked man called the Omen Bringer. Highly recommend both that deck and Main Deck's channel. Have fun playing both of these starter decks, and happy Ether Calling! Yep, one last one for good measure. Thank you. Enjoy!